Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this week for another installment of Ask Epic. Um, I can't tell you how excited I am today. We have some exceptional guests. We meet every week to discuss all things Epic. We want to provide new to Epic families and returning families just a place to learn about all the many opportunities we offer. I am Carla Smitherman, and I'm with the Epic Development Team.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm Ashley Brown, and I'm also from the Epic Development Team. We're excited to be here. Like Carla said, we've got some fun things to talk about today. So, if you're joining and you have any questions or maybe comments you'd like to get out there in the open, we ask that you put them in the chat box, and we will address those as we see them. If you have something that maybe might require some one-on-one attention, a really specific question, or maybe you just want to go really in depth, I would encourage you to reach out to Carla and I's team. We're the development team, and that's what we're here for, is to talk with families and answer questions and kind of get them in the know with Epic. So I'm going to actually drop our team phone number and email address in the chat box. So if you want some more one-on-one help, please reach out to us via email or phone, and someone from our team will be happy to help you. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about how we can motivate our students to do their best and reach their full potential. So we're joined today. We've got Betty with us, and we have Carrie, and they're going to discuss some of their favorite motivational tools. We really appreciate you ladies joining us today. Do you mind, Carrie and Betty, just taking a quick second to introduce yourself and tell us your role at Epic? Let's start with Carrie.
I'm Carrie Cardiel. I have been teaching now for 14 years total. I've been with Epic now. This would be my seventh year, I believe. I'm trying to keep track of everything. And I am a special education teacher, certified in elementary ed, mild to moderate, and severe profound, as well as physical education, health, and safety. So, I feel that play is key to learning.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And what about you, Betty?
My name is Betty Boslovisky, and I am a teacher development specialist here with Epic. So I help teachers on just everything Epic and also developing them to be the best teachers for our students and serve our students the best we can. And I was a teacher with Epic for 3 years, and then this is my fourth year, or I think my fourth year as a TDS. And so I'm excited to be here and answer some questions.
Very good. Okay, thank you both so much for what you do for Epic. First of all, I just wanted to just give a shout out to all the TDSs out there. I think TDSs are our superpower with Epic because I remember how I don't know how many times with the Ogden tribe, how many times we relied on our TDS team. So just a special shout out to the wonderful TDS group. So Betty, thank you so much for what you do with Epic, and we appreciate you. And to Miss Cardiel, I have seen you in person. You are amazing at motivating students. So I can't wait to hear what you have to add for us today. And I know Betty's going to give great additions too. So, anyway, so let's get started. The first thing we always love to do with our guests is to ask a tip. And we call them Tips with Carla. So we like to begin our webinar asking our guests, give us a tip that you'd love to share that would give great outcomes for students this semester. So I'll start with Miss Carrie, if you can give us one, and then I'll go to Betty.
I think my best tip was to make sure that your student has a schedule. They need to have something that lets them know what's coming next. So, I would make sure it's a visible schedule. Those are always key, and kind of have the student take ownership of it.
Outstanding. That sounds like a wonderful idea. I think I recall many, many times with students sitting down with them and saying, okay, so how are you starting your day? So that's a great, great tip. Thank you, Miss Carrie. Okay, Betty, how about you?
I think one of my biggest tips is break tasks down. I have to do that in my field of just, I have my list of things I need to do, and then I go back and I prioritize the most important and down so. And I feel like that fits with any situation. So students and parents even develop a list and then break that list down. What are some things that you can do in this time frame, or what are some things that may take a little bit longer, that may need a little more research or extra supplements or things like that to help you out. But I think when you break it down, some of those bigger tasks don't seem so daunting and makes it a lot easier to achieve. And then you can continue to get them completed and feel that sense of accomplishment.
Oh, wow. That's a great one. Thank you. Wow. Okay. I would tell I was going to give my tip, but you all just have, what do we say? Mic drop on those, Ashley, sometimes. But anyway, I think the one that I was going to share this year, even though it's beautiful outside, right? When it's cold outside, it seems like a great time of the year to get your student indoors to the library. I think our local libraries have some fantastic activities, and it's just nothing like putting a great book in the hands of a child and saying, okay, let's go through the book. Let me help you read it. If they're younger, if they're older, dissecting it with them, asking what the main idea, you all get the point. But it's just nothing like having a book in the hand of a young person. So that's my tip. Get them reading. Okay. Now moving on to our topic of motivating students. EPIC teachers see students every year who have great potential, but may not wake up eager to tackle their daily coursework. I think I can probably get a amen to that, right? Some face fears, doubts, and concerns that impact their attitude and performance in school. As we approach state testing this spring, the challenge is to keep students motivated and engaged. How do we do that? And ready to achieve great results for the year. Today, that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to tackle this topic, the crucial topic of student motivation. How do we inspire these learners to take action and actively engage in their learning? How do parents and educators, motivate our students daily to do their very, very best? I mean, I don't know about you all, but I remember even as growing up, staring at a blank page, trying to write an essay, needing motivation myself. So I think this is a great topic.
Yeah, absolutely, Carla. And it's funny. I mean, we're talking about motivating our students, but I'm quite sure I'm going to be taking notes today and writing down some advice for myself. I feel like kind of in that winter slump a little bit of like ready for spring to start. I need some motivation. So I'm going to have to be taking notes today. So this is applicable for everyone, not just for your students. But I thought, before we dive into getting to some of these tips and advice, I think it's important to talk about the different types of motivation because you may hear it come up today. And a lot of you are probably already familiar with this, but just in case, the teacher in me, I have to do a little bit of background for you. We're going to talk about intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So if a person is intrinsically motivated, they are doing things because they're motivated within themselves. So internally, intrinsic, internal, they are motivated within themselves to do something. And when we're talking about extrinsic motivation, that's something that people are doing something because of an external factor. Maybe they know they have a reward coming their way if they get it done. Or on the flip side, it could be they're a little bit afraid of a punishment if they don't get it done. So that's when external factors are motivating you to get something done. And there's a time and place for both. We'll kind of get into that, I think. But when it comes to motivating your students, some of you might be lucky enough to have your students who are intrinsically motivated to do their work every day. And if you are that lucky, good for you. Don't take it for granted because many families and teachers know that you're going to have to start with some extrinsic or external motivation to get your students going. So really excited to dive into this today.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Okay, so our first question is, and I'll just start with Carrie and then we'll go to Betty. Carrie, why is it important for students to be motivated?
Well, motivation is key to their education. When you have students that are motivated, they're more likely to set goals, work toward achieving those goals. And those that are unmotivated, you're just walking around pulling teeth, trying to get them to do anything. And when you have the more motivated a student is, that likely tends toward higher achievement as well. And Ashley went over the intrinsic and extrinsic. And so like, especially with my students to keep them motivated, right now we're doing a lot of extrinsic to get them back going. So
Okay. Well, good. We'll get some example of those. I can't wait to hear them in a minute, Carrie. Okay, thank you. All right, Betty. So why is it important for you for students to be motivated?
Think it's important for the learning to stick. So if students are not motivated, I think it's harder for them to retain that information and have that go into their increasing years as they go. Having that background knowledge and those skill sets in order to fully understand and be engaged and love the learning process of it as well.
That sounds good. I know love of learning is a very important key to motivation. So that sounds great. Thank you, both of you. Had those great answers. So okay, Carrie. Again, I've seen you in action. I know you do a great job of this. Give me some examples of maybe an extrinsic motivational tool that you use, and which one do you prefer, or which one is better that you believe?
Well, I think, especially right now for a lot of the students that I have on my roster, I do a lot of what's called gamification. So, um, when they do so much work, they've earned game time, or I try to build into different tasks that they like games. Because that seems to keep them motivated to want to get to that next thing. And then again, having that visual where they can see, okay, once I've completed this, and this, and I also, make as a requirement, you need to understand it. I want to see mastery. I want to see, not just, okay, it's done, check on. It's to help get them involved. So gamification and free time, because when they like the free time too as well.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. Everybody likes free time. Now, let me ask you specifically gamification. Is that an extra app that you have, or is that? Tell me a little bit more specifically about that. What does that
Well, it
entail?
depends. It depends. There are some of the programs that my students use that already have that gamification built in. So like it has those rewards that after a certain amount of tasks, they get to complete a game before going on to the next task. So I do look for curriculums that have that included. If the curriculum itself does not have that included, then we discuss, okay, well, what game or what is a motivating factor for you? What do you like to do? I have some students that like to go online and play Prodigy with their free account. And so they get, 5 minutes of Prodigy, and then they go back and complete so many more assignments or so many more tasks. So
Yeah.
we build that into their schedule as that intrinsic motivation. Then there's others like my high school students that are involved in the esports program, and they are motivated to do work because they have to do work to be able to participate. And so you have that intrinsic motivation, just like you and I have our paychecks at times that help us keep going through our day. They need sometimes that extra reminder of, hey, they don't always feel they're getting something out of it when they aren't, or when they don't feel connected with the material. And
That
so
sounds
that's why
very
that
good.
extrinsic motivation is so key sometimes.
That sounds wonderful. Boy, I tell you what, it's nothing like having esports or something right there to say, hey, if you finish all of your work on time, you can get to your esports. I had a lot of families that did that. Anyway, thank you so much, Carrie. That's great. Okay, how about you, Betty? What do you think about? So the question is, do you think that one type of motivation is better than another in regards to extrinsic or intrinsic motivation? And if you have some examples of either, please let us know.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is knowing your student. So I think different types of motivation work for certain students, whereas it may not work the same for other students. And if you are a parent with multiple kids in this program, you may also know your kids are different. And so they may have different motivations that spark their motivation to learn, their engagement than your other child that's enrolled as well. So I think just knowing what works best for your child and using those to help achieve that motivational aspect. I'll carry on what Carrie said a little bit of kind of the gamification, but mine that came to mind that I wanted to share was competition. Some people are very competitive, and that does drive a lot of incentive to get things done, is that competitiveness. And I think if you don't have a group setting where you can compete against other students, there are also ways to have competition with yourself. And my daughter's in gymnastics, and so I think of that as a sport that they really compete with themselves. They set goals for themselves, and then they push themselves. And so you can do the same thing with learning, is set some competitive goals with themselves as well, if there's not a group environment type thing that you can compete with other students necessarily.
Wow, that's a great example. As soon as you said competition and motivation, you know what came to mind. I remember my son was younger. The teacher had she had this board, and she could not get her boys to be motivated to get them to do something she wanted them to do. All of a sudden, she came with this idea. She gave all the fellows a little car and had them to compete with a car. I just remember, and I remember every day that my son would come home, he would say, I'm winning the race, you know. So when you said competition, you know, that sometimes that kind of motivation does work. And then to Carrie's point of having a visual, every day he would walk in the door and tell me how he would achieve certain things. And it was definitely working by watching that little board. So I do think that those things do work. So thank you very much. Ashley, do you have something?
Sure. So let's see. I was just thinking, sorry, I totally just lost my train of thought. Okay, question. Would you say that developing motivation for students in a virtual setting is harder than brick and mortar? We'll start with you, Betty.
Would say yes and no. Again, I feel like that depends on the student. I think with Epic, the hardest part is that there does have to be more discipline in creating a schedule and sticking with a schedule and motivating yourself. You have that freedom to sleep in. And so I think it's very important to have that schedule of, we're still going to wake up and get dressed and brush our teeth and get ready for the day and get in that mindset of school. And then you have some students who are just naturally, they love checklists and they love to get after it. And so I think it again goes to knowing your student and accommodating to what they need. And maybe that's pushing them a little bit towards the direction of, maybe it's, we need to structure our day better or something like that. But I do feel like we have more freedom than a brick and mortar school, and the aspect of being able to motivate time off. You do all this stuff and you kind of get ahead, and you have that freedom to take off on Friday, and we can go to the zoo and turn it into a learning experience at the zoo and get out of the classroom or your home and learn outside, or other things that brick and mortar students can't just take off and go do. And so I think that is something that's very powerful that we have, that can be used towards motivating our students to get their assignments completed and build off of those.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's
Yes.
kind of an example, and I think this comes up every webinar, of where we are so, it's so unique at Epic because we can really cater to kids' individual needs. And I love your point about being able to use your time, right? Like you said, if a kid gets all of their assignments done Monday through Thursday, Friday, you don't have quite as much to do, and you can go do a fun activity. And like you said, that's just not always possible in a brick and mortar. Well, it's usually definitely not possible in a brick and mortar setting. That's a great point, Betty. I really appreciate that. Okay, what about you, Carrie? Would you say that it's harder or just different or easier motivating students in this virtual setting?
I think at sometimes it's easier, and I think sometimes it's harder. But again, I agree with Betty. You have to know your student. You know, students that are naturally outgoing and charismatic, and sometimes have a real struggle with being alone a lot. or, being in just small groups or, but, then you have those students that love their solitude and could just crank everything out in a minute, because, all right, I got this quiet, I got this focus. So you really have to know them. And I love the fact, though, that we can build in that we have that flexibility and that autonomy to really create and build out things to their interests. And, as well as meeting the standards, but we can create paths that are specifically for them. And I think that helps make things motivation helps them be more motivated because they can take ownership and have like a choice. So whenever I can, I try to give my students that choice, and build like at least one project-based learning project over each semester so that they get to choose, okay, do we want to do it like this? Do it like this? Do we want to do this topic? Do we want to do this? But these are the things that we have to include. And they get to really be a part of that and invest in it. And I think so many kids feel in their education, they don't get choices.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that, Carrie, because that's what I was thinking when I was looking at this question earlier. I was thinking back to my experience teaching. And one thing that I loved about teaching at Epic was that I knew my students on a much deeper level than I was able to when I taught in brick and mortar, solely because I just had so much more one-on-one interaction. And it gave you the opportunity, like you said, if you know their passions and their interests and what they are good at and what they might struggle with, you can really leverage that in trying to motivate them. I think that's a great point. And another thing that you said that I love is about being able to encourage them to take ownership of their learning. I think that's something that's a really big part of students finding success at Epic. It's when a student learns to take ownership of their learning, that they can really blossom. Because if you've got ownership in what you're doing, if you feel like what you're doing is relevant to you and matters to you, I think that at that point, that's kind of some intrinsic motivation right there, right? Because you see the value in what you're doing, it's relevant to you. And I think that's probably a lot of teachers' ultimate goals. I know at least I would always think about that with especially my older kids. If I can just get them to see the value in this and to take ownership of it, there's no motivation on my part. That'll take care of itself. And it's so nice when you see that happen. So I think that you guys both had great points. Okay, so we kind of talked on this a little bit, but I thought we'd maybe see if we had anything else. We could start with you, Carrie. In what ways do you find to motivate your students? What resources, anything else? I know you talked about gamification, but would you say there's anything else that you feel like you are using regularly?
Again, it's really it's based on my students. I use a lot of different curriculums, because they all have different abilities, but one of the ones that I really love, especially for those kids that tend to be a little bit more creative, I love Flocabulary. Flocabulary has fun music, their videos, their raps, you know, and it comes with extended reading. It has immersive reader tools in it so that it's accessible to everyone. And it just kind of makes it a little fun. At first they're kind of like, what's going on? And so sometimes we have to listen to it a couple of times. We get a transcript out, we go over the transcript and really, kind of get into it. But once they kind of get it, they really like to get in there, and that one I see more kids wanting to do kind of on their own. They're drawn to that one and love to explore the different things. So there's times that I'll even use that as a reward, because since they like it so much, we can hit something maybe that they're struggling with in their regular curriculum or whatever. And I can, say, hey, well, why don't you go practice this in Flocabulary a little bit? Here's this. And I can assign it to them in that, and they can go, and they almost see it as play. And I've always been one that feels that play is key because I was a kid. If you didn't have my attention, you didn't have my attention. I mean, you needed to get up there, act crazy, you couldn't keep my attention. It was just so hard. And so I think the more outgoing I am, the more excited I am about something, then it can get them excited too. So, and vocabulary is just one of those for me. If they like music at all, that's usually my go-to for some extra educational but fun experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say, Carrie, would be how would you encourage a caregiver or parent to get involved in motivating their students? Is there anything they could be doing at home to kind of get their student amped
Yeah.
up?
One, they need to be invested in it. They have to be excited about it. And sometimes kids may look at you like you are insane because go over the top, go, oh my gosh, that looks so exciting. What are you talking about? And just start, kind of getting, and they may, what are you, like, have you lost it? And you're like, no, what I'm excited about what you're learning. Let's look. If you want, I'll look together. I think the more they seem invested, that's going to help their child. Again, that predictable routine. You've got to have that routine. So getting up, getting going, getting dressed, brushing teeth, all those little things that you do for a brick and mortar school, that gets kids awake and prepared and ready. When they just wake up, get out of bed and turn on their computer, they still have at least a good 30 minutes of their brain waking up before they can actually focus to absorb what they need to absorb. I also think, again, the accountability, getting an accountability system so that schedule, reward system, whatever it may be that works best for that student. Also, please don't let your child work in bed. Please set up a space. Have them invest time helping you set up that space. Let them, even if make a project and say, hey, I want you to create a floor plan of this room. How do you think we need to set up your schoolroom? Or whatever it is, or your spot in the living room, your spot in the kitchen. What all do we need? Invest them into it, and always stay present, stay involved. Because when you step out, they're not thinking this is important still. If you're in there and checking on them periodically, even if you're not with them all the time, they know that you're there, you care, and you want to know what's going on. So those would be the things that I would say are key.
Awesome.
As well as make sure you get them in some sort of outside, talk to one of our vendors, get them in an outside activity to get, especially those outgoing, charismatic kids, get them involved with a group somewhere, because I think that's where I see most of the struggle. The kids are lonely. They want peer interaction. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. You had a lot that you just dropped there that was really helpful and great to hear. Okay, I'm gonna let Betty, let me see here. So we had asked, where were we? We were saying, do you have any other motivate or any other tools or strategies that you think teachers that are helpful for using to engage or motivate students? And then I'll ask you that same question, Betty. How do you recommend caregivers can get involved in motivating their students?
Yeah.
So again, I keep going back to knowing your student, but I think that's one beauty with Epic too, is the personalized learning paths and being able to really help use those to create an individualizing learning, a bit like a learning, platform for students to be able to work on the areas that they have strengths in and their weaknesses. So I think building off of what they know, what they're interested in, and carrying with that. We have so many interactive learning platforms that you can plug into. And I think just the ability of something simple as reading something about the Great Wall of China and taking the step further and taking a virtual field trip to that and learning about the cultural and other places around China and things like that, and dive into their interest. If that's something that sparks an interest, dive a little bit deeper. But using those interactive platforms, I know Carrie mentioned using Flocabulary, but Kahoot, those games, those competitive games that they have access to as well, that can be used to help motivate those students to continue working. And maybe you complete your assignment and then we'll play this fun game afterwards, and it's something that they look forward to. But again, I think the biggest thing is just playing off of that student's personalized learning plan and adapting it to that. And we have that capability here to really hone in on that individual student and what motivates them to learn. What are they interested in? Are they interested in music? Are they interested in coding? Are they interested in games? I mean, there's so many VR type games that they could do, or create their own VR world, anything like that, and tie it into a lesson or a standard is something unique that they can do. And it's not something, it's, like a brick and mortar, you have to teach to the whole class. And here we're teaching to the individual student. And so I think that's where just playing off the student's interest is going to be the biggest motivator to get students engaged in their learning.
Wow, that sounds really good. That goes back to that individualized instruction we always talk about, which is one of our great features that we talk about with Epic. Ashley and our teams answer hundreds of calls all the time. And I feel that that's one of the best features that we have, is that we have something unique, something different. We talk about our individualized instruction. This is what we talk about all the time. So I'm happy to say that you are bringing those points out right now. I had thought about, we always talk about, of course, Epic is a little different than a lot of our instructors teach K through 12th grade, right? So I know that's different, and that's very unique. I said K through 12th grade, pre-K through 12th grade. So I'll start with you, Betty, with this. There's a little different in different methods of motivating a younger learner and then a middle school or high school. Can you tell us some of the varied ways that you would recommend to motivate maybe the younger learner versus the high school student or middle school, and what would that look like?
I think kind of what Carrie mentioned before is play into those groups. There's so many, I can say, just since I started this, there's so many people who are doing this type of school or homeschool or things where you can really plug into those groups, plug into a co-op and do some group interaction, especially for those littles. I'm early childhood major, and I know how important it is for them to have that collaborative work and have those friends. And if you've ever listened to like a toddler or something, they speak their own language. And sometimes when you're explaining something to them, we're adults and we use the vocabulary that may not click well with them. And if they have a friend that explains it to them in a different way, it clicks more with them because they're speaking their language. So I think if you can find a friend in this organization, that's going to help tremendously and be able to motivate that student to learn a little bit further and communicate and work together on certain things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. So basically, building connections in the community can help motivate those families. I think you're so spot on with that. I know many times I've seen families with Epic with T-shirts out on at whether it's the zoo. I've seen them out and about throughout the community, and so those are great ways to motivate families and great ways to motivate students. So thank you for that. That is a great encourager. Okay. All right, Carrie, how about you? So the question is, again, we teach varied amount of learners. So what are some different methods that you can think of? I know you mentioned, like you said, gamifications and oh, by the way, I love Flocabulary, and I am a Kahoot fan, by the way. I love Kahoot. So I use that a lot. Tell me a little bit about how what types of strategies you've used in the past for the young learner versus the middle or high school learner.
For the younger learners, I probably do a lot more physical or kinesthetic activity mixed in with your academic activity, because as we know, those younger kids tend to need to fidget all the time. So like I build in, like, even if we're doing a Zoom, I'll build in, okay, we've done, we've done 5-10 minutes of our lesson. I'll go, okay, guys, ready? It's time for, freeze tag or dance party. And I'll turn on some music. We'll dance, we'll do whatever. And so we do a physical activity. That way it gets all that pent up energy from sitting for so long out. And then I go, okay, ready, timer's done, come back, let's go. And I do those little breaks throughout our activity. Then I do a lot more hands-on stuff because some of the younger students I've noticed do better with hands-on activities, and activities that they can apply in their everyday life. So like if they're at home and they're helping mom cook in the kitchen, doing their little thing, we might have on an activity, have them go, okay, can you go get me 5 spoons, 4 forks, 3 knives, or whatever it may be. Maybe not knives, sorry.
It's okay.
But
We get your point.
something in the kitchen, so that,
Right.
and then when they do this, they might say, hey mom, well, look, we've got 5 spoons and we've got 3 forks. Oh wow, we've got 8 total silverware out right now. Or so that they're not only when they're at school they're thinking about learning, in just their everyday life they can see how it applies. So finding those different activities to be able to do that. But I like a lot of kinesthetic, and also having them repeat things back to me so that they get, in unison, trying to get that. So it helps solidify that task or standard that we've been working on and help it solidify in there.
Wonderful. Very good. So that's for the younger learner, the kinesthetic, and then repetition. That sounds wonderful for the younger learner. How about middle high school? Just kind of in your mind, the gamification. Any other options you can think of to give us?
Middle and high school can be different. Again, get to know your kids. If you're, that's where that is absolutely key to me. It's great, younger. For me, younger has always been a little bit easier to, they respond very well to, just, here we go. And high school and middle school look at you when you do that and are like, so I had to find different ways because I was very outgoing and they would just kind of look at me like, can you tone that down for me? And I'll be like, okay. So with them, I just kind of I talk to them as if they're adults. I treat them very respectfully and I give them as many choices as I possibly can when dealing with their tasks, assignments, whatever it is, so that they then take ownership. With them, I'm primarily working on that ownership aspect. And if it's, as much as like I've got some students, I was like, they're trying to get them to work. And I was like, if you want to do this, if you want to take boxing second semester and we count it as an elective, we've got to work on getting this done. Otherwise, they're not going to want to add it to your schedule, and just talk to them as if, they're the ones making all the decisions, even though the parents are, giving them that choice. And I suggest parents, involve them, go, what is it that you're not liking about this? Or what do you think we should change? Or is there anything we should add? If they're having a problem with a certain assignment, talk to your teacher, communicate. Because we as teachers can look at that assignment and go, okay, that's not working for your student. Let's do this instead and make it more active or engaging for them. So, communication is key, choices are key, and just, talking to them and including them.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. I
Hey,
think when you
Carla.
in
Oh no,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Carla. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
Oh,
wanted to
you're
throw in because I don't want to hijack your question here,
no,
but
you're fine. Go
I thought
ahead.
I had something I was thinking about in regards to the older learners. Kind of Carrie got me thinking about this,
No,
but
this is
um
really great.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
know. It's fun to hear everybody's thoughts on this. But something that I felt like with my teenage students, so high school, middle school, a lot of times they come to you at this age and they're already kind of they don't feel very confident in themselves and they don't feel like they really I'm not good at math or I'm not good at this. They've already got that ingrained in their head. And I felt like I totally agree with Carrie. You treat them like they are adults and like they have power here and ownership over this and allow them to kind of lead the way as far as what direction they want to head, but also setting them up for success with small wins. I always felt like a lot of these kids just needed to build some confidence up because for whatever reason they didn't have it. And if I could set them up with something that I know they can get this and I'm going to celebrate the heck out of it. And that just kind of builds up confidence over time and it kind of works on, like you guys have mentioned before, getting them to engage with their learning and take ownership of it. That was just my little tidbit is giving your student some small wins to have to build up that confidence and kind of growing with that. That was just my little thing. Sorry, Carla. I'll give it back to you now.
No, I think that's awesome. Thank you. I think this is great, you all. I think I wish I'd had this before I even had children. I needed Carrie and Betty and Ashley. But anyway, this is so helpful. I hope our viewing audience is getting as much out of it as I really am. So I think Carrie, you did a great job of asking my next question. So I appreciate you talking about parents. So I needed to ask Betty that question basically. How important is it, Betty, for parents to partner with teachers to motivate these learners?
I think it's extremely important. It is so important for the parent to be active in their own students' learning, but then also be willing to advocate for their student as well. If something's not working, the student may not feel comfortable or have that confidence yet to have that voice and let that parent be the voice for that parent, I mean, for the student, and communicate with the teacher. It's not saying you have to go complain to the teacher, but you know your student better than anybody else. And so therefore going to the teacher and saying, hey, my student's really struggling with this, this, and this, that teacher is going to have resources and ideas and things to accommodate to that student's needs. But if you don't tell them that there's an issue or that there's something there, they don't know that there's an issue. And so I think that's a huge key in how important it is for the parent to be involved in their own child's learning is so that you can help be a strong advocate for them and be that voice for them.
That sounds wonderful. I know that just locking arms with your student is so important, and they need to feel that you're right there with them and walking through every struggle, every trial. It just does help the student feel so much better about their work and performances. So, thanks so much, Betty. And I appreciate that input.
Carla, I was thinking about this. You and I were talking earlier about how you felt goal setting was really important. And we kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but you had some great points about how you thought goal setting was important when it comes to having students that are motivated. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think well, I'm a big goal setter. My family's a big goal setter. I mean, we're so big on it in my family. My children, even as young, we do the vision boards every year annually, first of the year, put them up because I like being able to look at something and see where are we trying to achieve, where are we trying to go. It just helps you to be vested in it, and it helps you, encourages you because you're looking, and once you achieve something and you see, hey, I did that, it just helps build your confidence and it helps build your motivation. And even if it's the small, what I've learned, it's the small things that count. And I think that's part of what we talked about, Ashley. It's not necessarily the big things like, hey, I'm trying to get that A in that class. No, no, no. It's that I just need a 90 or I need a 75. So I think it's the small things of building those small confidence boosters with families or with students. And if you can put that on a vision board or and track those in form of goals, I think that helps to motivate your student. And I really, really believe in that. So tell me if we forgot something, Ashley, because we did a great goal setting conversation. And Carrie and Betty, please join in with that because you all have mentioned goals. If you all want to add in too, please do so.
Well, I just love that you brought up vision boards because I forget. I don't do that myself, and I probably should. And those are something it really, especially like creative kids who or visual kids that really need to see that. That is a great thing for them to have and see every day as a reminder. This is my goal. This is what I want to see next year. This is what I want to do. Even and throwing those things that even if it's the biggest dream, having that dream on there so that they can see the steps that they need to take to get there. Because we do forget that, we're just going day to day to day, and you forget sometimes, well, the goal is out here, but I've kind of forgotten about it because I'm just trying to get through today. And you always want to be reminded that this day leads to that future goal. So,
And I piggyback off of like kind of goals. And I know we've thrown out the word ownership and stuff. And I think how important it is to have the students involved in setting those goals. And one of my favorite activities that I did whenever I was a teacher was having them set the class expectations. I wanted to hear what they wanted from me as a teacher and what they wanted from their parent as a parent, working alongside their teacher. And then I wanted to hear what they felt a good student was. And they wrote out their own contract. And it was something really good to refer back to because, hey, remember when you said you were going to do this? And then do you feel like it was something we could continue to reflect on and build off of. And it was so neat to see what they came up with. And I think that's something that even as a parent could do of what do you want from me as your parent to do in your education as far as expectations and things like that. And what are your goals going to be as the student and things like that. So I think it's huge to have that student ownership and then be able to have a voice. Like what Ashley said, those middle school, high school kiddos, I do feel like that's the strongest thing for them is their voice. And when you let them speak what they want, you're going to get the biggest buy-in from them.
Absolutely. And I think it's so cool that you guys have brought up vision boards because now I'm over here dreaming myself of like I need to go make myself one. But I think it's so cool because all of this really ties together. I think we're all on the same wavelength, but talking about with the high school kids, if their big goal is to join the army, well, what are the little things you can do each day to help you get there? And I'm talking log on and do 4 assignments for math class. That's part of the process to get you there. And so if you have your big vision, ask your students to think about what are the small things you can do each day to help you get there, right? And so and again, it's all about motivation as well because you've got your big goal at the top and your little things you're working towards. And as you accomplish those little things, mark them off your list because that's motivating. You can see where you've had success there. I think that's a really cool thing. So, sorry about that. I just had to chime in there.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate all this input. This is great. How important is praise and feedback? I'm just going to ask this. I could not wait to get to this one because I just think this is so important. We'll just start with Betty. How important is praise and feedback to students to motivate them? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important. And I think we mentioned too, like maybe some students do better off of kind of discipline type stuff, but I think every student benefits from praise and feedback and needs that. You feel more motivated to please whoever it is that's giving you that feedback and that praise, and you want more of that. And you feel more confident going in. It's a huge confidence booster even if it's something just minor, that simple praise and knowing that you did something good makes you feel good inside and makes you want to continue to do that or do more to see, oh, she liked that. Watch what I can do now. And so I think it's extremely important for any student in any situation.
Outstanding. That's good. Okay. How about you, Carrie? And Ashley, I want to hear your feedback on the praise and praise it too as well in a minute. What do you think, Carrie?
I definitely think that praise and feedback are key. And also teaching, one of the things that I have predominantly high school students on my caseload right now. So I'm also taking this time as an opportunity to teach them constructive criticism versus negativity. So because a lot of my students, when I get trying to give them constructive criticism, they're like, why are you mad at me? Why are you this? Why are you? I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, this is the difference. And because they maybe have their area in reading or language is not as proficient as math or whatever, they may not understand that how I'm saying something is actually constructive way of having them correct something. And like, they're like, well, why do you have to talk to me like that? Well, when you have a job, you're going to have a boss, and that boss may tell you that you need to correct something you're doing. And hopefully they'll do it in this manner, so that they're prepared for those future workplace experiences. And so, and whenever they do anything right, yes, we automatically need to, and that praise needs to be as immediate as you possibly can. One other thing I've been doing is trying to do daily texts of just affirmation, where I text them and I just say, hey, you are strong, you are beautiful, you are smart, something to where they know I'm thinking about them, even though we may not meet that day or something, to hopefully get their day started off on the right foot. Because I think we all, when we get that motivation, I know when I get my little text from Carla Smitherman, that tell me how wonderful I am, that always makes my day. So starting them off with that initial praise, even if they haven't done anything immediately right then, just, I'm so glad you are you and I love you, that can just send somebody off on the right path to start out their day. So those are the kind of the things that I've been working on, especially.
I love that. You nailed it, because I do believe in praise and feedback. Okay, Ashley, I love to hear what you have to say for this one.
Well, you know what? I honestly think Betty and Carrie knocked it out of the park on this one. I'm really just gonna have to copy what they said. I just think, again, what I think is so important for students is giving them the confidence to take ownership. And that's what so many of these kids need. That's all they need, is to know that somebody believes in them so that they can believe in themselves. And here's the deal. You have students who are, I mean, genius level test wise, but they have no motivation, and it is very hard for them to achieve much of anything in school. And it's just because all they need is that motivation. And on the flip side, you can have a student who's not testing anywhere near genius level, but they are motivated. They know they've got people in their corner. They're motivated within themselves. They're confident within themselves. And they go out there and they're in college and they're working on their master's or whatever it is, and they accomplish so much. And really, that can be all it is just a matter of motivation. It's not always just about, are you the smartest kid in the room? It's about, do you believe in yourself, and are you motivated to do your very best? That's just, I don't know. That's just my big thing
That's
in
awesome.
teaching.
That is awesome. Well, you also have little ones at home that you have to praise and give feedback to all the time. So I know I appreciate that with you. So anyway, all righty. Well, we have had some great nuggets today. Don't you agree, Ashley? I don't know. I think this has been a fantastic webinar so far. I cannot tell both of you how much we appreciate you both.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate you guys joining us. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I'm in the winter slump, and I'm like I'm not just saying this, you guys. I'm feeling way more energized. I don't know if it's the sun, or if it's you guys and having this conversation with you, maybe a little bit of both, but I'm feeling much more energized. So, we really appreciate you, Betty and Carrie, for joining us, and anybody else that was following along. Just to kind of close out. We feel like Epic offers a lot of resources that are meant to assist families on their journey with Epic. And our most valuable asset is going to be our teachers, right? We wouldn't be anywhere without them. There's a lot of important part pieces of the puzzle, but ultimately our teachers are what makes Epic so special. They play a crucial role on the front line. They're supporting our students. Our support staff is also working tirelessly, like Betty. She's supporting our teachers, to give teachers that helping hand to do the best for our students. And ultimately, everyone's objective at Epic is to achieve a positive outcome for our students. And so today we were really lucky to gain insights from a teacher and a TDS, or a teacher development specialist, on strategies to motivate your students to reach your goals. And so we are just committed to delivering results for our families. And I think this was really informative for me, and I hope
I
for
do
it was for
too.
those of you watching.
Yeah, I cannot thank Carrie and Betty enough for I think they gave us pearls of wisdom today. I just think this was a great webinar. So thank you both so much. And I have to say, Carrie and Betty, you are wonderful. How about that? And I'm going to work on my positive feedback today. And Ashley, so are you. And so is the Epic development team, by the way. I had to say that. And I want to say also, Epic staff, just kind of lately, we've been working hard with a lot of Epic staff in the background. Shout out to Jeremy, who works hard in the background to make these Epic webinars successful. So anyway, thank you for everybody for joining us too. But if you still have questions about our programs or anything discussed today, or maybe you're considering enrolling but need more information, you can reach out to our team at 405-749-4550 extension 489, or you can email us at edt@epiccharterschools.org. We're happy to answer questions and give you the information you need to make the best choice for your student. Thank you again for joining us today, and come back next week for Ask Epic. Have a good day, everybody.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Bye.